All right, I think that we're doing this video that was not scheduled or even planned for today, but Pedro and Jose were having some great conversation about an actual issue that we're having with the client that have some reports that are being taking too long, that are slow reports. And we were discussing that we have seen this a lot since we started in the DevExpress report tool. And basically, we want to discuss what we have found, like the more common issues, what people think that the problem is, what the actual problem is, a few fixes is on the tooling side, is on the database side. So you guys take it from there. Let's continue the same conversation, right?
Pedro, if you want, you can start with with the first part that all people think is the cause, which is about the query. So you're better on that than me. So go ahead with.
We are defending some topics. So I have an expression that I like a lot that say guilty doesn't fall to the ground. So we need to give the guilty to something. The report, database, anything, but somebody have to be the guilty. So when people say my report is slow, the first thing in memory is the report. The problem is the report because it's the last things that I see, what I'm seeing in this moment. But most of the time, the report is not the guilty. We need to see all the components that are involved in this. I'm taking the information about the query most of the time is the guilty. So when we create a report and connect to a database, we need to understand that if we create a complex query with a lot of fields, with a lot of calculation, this gonna take time to resolve, and of course it's gonna take time. This information go to the report, and the report have to wait before this information is finished to calculate. So the first thing that in my case, I go immediately to the query and see if I have more fields that I need, if I have a calculation that is not important, or I leave it over there just for a testing. So optimize what the report is consuming, I think, is the best practice in the database field. So, and other things are around the query, index, and other things that we can discuss in some moment in detail. That's correct. But in this case, the first thing is my report is eating some data. I need to say that this data have to be good enough for the report, and is good enough for the report can eat and don't get mess.
Yeah. A lot of like users, they always go and say, no, maybe it's the rendering that is taking too much time. And just to briefly mention that, we have internal tools that check how much it takes to render this report, how much it takes to render this detail, this band, how much it takes to render any component or control that we have on the report, like how much it's taking to bind to the data sources. So all of those things, like 80%, 90%, like most of the time, the rendering goes really fast. It's actually the data that is coming. So that's basically like there is a lot of things in that part that we can do about how we binding the data, how are we bringing everything at once, are we just loading on demand, are we binding to what type of data source are we like connecting. So a lot of choices there.
Okay, so there is another topic that I want to bring, that is how are you communicating your data to the report? As Pedro mentioned before, people think that, okay, the report is slow. That's what you got as an IT person. But that can be several reasons. For example, how you read the data. Not only how fast is the query, is how do I read it? For example, right now with AI, everyone knows the concept of streaming, that is returning little by little, like chunks of data. So for example, in .NET, extra reports from Developer Express, they, depending on the data source you're using, if you're using an SQL data source, they will produce a data reader, which will be producing a row by row. So the results are almost, are really fast. So you can see data and rendering the screen really fast. I come from a different school where we used to load all the data before, do all the you know, make the sausage basically, and then pass it to the report. So sometimes, I mean, between streaming and or doing a data reader and passing the data is the exact same time, but the perception of the customer is totally different, because if you do streaming, at the first second they will start seeing something on the screen. If not, if the report takes 1 minute, they will see like in 10 seconds the first page. But if you do it by setting a data set completely or object arrays, it means that they will have to wait 1 minute to see the loading indicator, and then they will see all the pages at the same time. So that perception, how you communicate your data to the report, also will affect the perception of your customers on how fast or slow the report is. So that's basically what I can share from my experience. And I don't know, that's it from my side.
Perfect.
All right, I think that's it for today. We can actually expand in each of the topics on the query side, on the rendering side. We can expand on the data side side and the database side. But it's just to give a brief overview of things that could be happening with your report right now. All right, everyone.
Perfect.
See you in the next one.